50-50 Mixed Identity in Panama. I will talk explaining how religious mixedness is celebrated in Sri Lanka. My main focus will be on Panama. Let me begin my talk with this photograph. This is a small Pullayar temple in between Panama and Okada in eastern Sri Lanka. These types of small temples are a common characteristic in Sri Lanka. Pullayar or Lord Ganesha, originally a Hindu god who is worshipped by both Tamil Hindus and Sinhala Buddhists in Sri Lanka. He is mixed or hybrid figure per se. The abnormal combination of an elephant head and a human body has made people believe him as the god of prosperity, success and fortune. I take the concept of 50-50 from the work I have done in Panama village in Sri Lanka. Originally, the 50-50 according to people in Panama is half Sinhalese and half Tamil. In this presentation, I use this concept to denote mixedness in Panama in Sri Lanka. I will first give you a brief idea about the mixedness in Sri Lanka and then move to Panama. This presentation is based on the material I collected for my PhD work at the University of Zurich. This is the overview. First, I will give you the introduction. It basically covers mixed identity in Sri Lanka. Then I will move to Panama, following mixedness in Panama, and finally I come to religious syncretism in Panama. Mixed identity in Sri Lanka is indispensable. It is not only about combining two cultural aspects, yet it is also about producing boundaries. The notion of mixedness is as complex as the identity. The terms such as hybridity, imitation, appropriation, digestation, borrowing, acculturation, accommodation, creolization, translation, syncretism, and mestizaje all describe the concept of mixedness in the post-colonial literature. In short, mixedness is a mixture of two or more cultural traits resulting in a new form of culture. As Beck explains, hybridity is a metaphorical term and it has been described as maddeningly elastic. Mixedness among Sri Lankans has been studied under the umbrella term of hybridity. Hybrid communities, according to Baba, are intercultural spaces or spaces of in-betweenness and liminality. The Hybrid Island, edited by Silva, can be considered as the key text to study the concept of hybridity in Sri Lanka, in which two types of hybridity has been explained. In her chapter, From Hybridity to Authenticity, Wickramasinghe explained these two types of hybridity as East-West and East-East amalgamations. East-West amalgamation explains how Western cultural aspects such as Roman Catholic religion and English language married to Sri Lankan local cultural aspects, resulting in new ethnic categories of burghers. Burghers carry cultures of both East and West. Wahakote, for an example, is a Roman Catholic Sinhala village in central Sri Lanka. Burgher women wearing Kandyan saris who pray in Sinhala while reading the Sinhala Bible is a clear image of East-West hybridity. The second type of hybridity is amalgamation of cultural aspects of Indian subcontinent with Sinhalese culture. This is called East-East hybridity. As Wickramasinghe explained, East-East hybridity has never been considered to be other, but pure or authentic. the Kandyan sari, or we call it osariya. The sari, which is worn by the Burgher women I explained earlier, is known to be the pride of Kandyan Sinhala Buddhist women too. It is the traditional costume of Sinhalese women and is the same 6 yards of Indian sari but is wrapped around the waist with one end draped over the shoulder. Undoubtedly, osariya is a hybrid form of costume, but it never became mixed or other. Instead, Sinhalese say that it is their or our sari. In these photographs, you find the Sinhalese wearing sari, and this sari is worn by the bride in the first photograph is called the Kandyan sari. In the second picture, it is the same Indian sari worn by a Sinhalese Buddhist bride, while third and fourth photographs show you a Sinhalese Catholic bride wearing the Indian sari with an addition of a veil. This sari is the best example to show how amalgamation of South Indian or Indian cultural aspects integrated into Sinhala society and transformed it into Sinhalese identity. These three villages are examples to show how these villages assimilate both Sinhalese and Tamil cultural aspects into their everyday lives. In this map, you find Madukanda, Panama and Thulavelliya. The mixedness that three cases describe comes from two geographical areas, Vanni or borderland and Panama. Two cases from Vanni, namely Thulavelliya and Madukanda. The terms Vanni and border villages in everyday life in Sri Lanka designate a position of regressive, wild, arduous, underdeveloped or unmodernized spaces. They are historically the peripheral areas of the island and the locale where Sinhalese meet Tamils. Still in 1971, in his book The Jungle Tide, refers Vanni as a border covered with jungles where two races of Sinhalese and Tamils live together. Vanni in that context is therefore a corridor or passage of pluralism where multi-ethnicity and multicultural coexistence prevail. On the southern edge of this border, it is the Sinhalese who live along with the few Vedas, while Tamils reside in the northern frontier. The border zone, however, has not always been the case of coexistence, because in the wartime, Vanni and the other borderlands were the front lines for both Sri Lanka military and the LTT. Census 2012 in Sri Lanka records these two are Sinhalese Buddhist villages. Thulavelliya, as Leach studied in his anthropological account of Pulleliya, is a Veda village, and recently Ranavira and others classified and studied people in Thulavelliya under the category of Low Country Sinhalese, and in result, however, it turned out that these people neither Veda nor Low Country Sinhalese according to mitochondrial DNA. Sinhalese Buddhists in these villages have different aspects of mixedness. For example, people in these two villages have Sinhala names in Tamil style. The mixed identity they carry, such as naming practices and worshipping gods, has never considered as others. These practices are part of their everyday lives. Today, my aim is to explain the mixedness in Panama. For administrative purposes, Panama has 5 local administrative divisions called Grama Niladhari divisions, or we call them GN divisions. Panama is an exceptional case. It is the last settlement on the eastern coast of Sri Lanka. Panama has been studied as a mixed community and a multicultural society by previous scholars. This table gives you a background of Panama. What previous scholars have studied about this community? If you look at this table, in previous studies, Yalman, Gunasekara, Abhiratna and Piratna have studied this community from different perspectives. they define this particular community in different contexts. For example, Yalman, who studied this area first, describes Panama as an amalgamated social system with both Sinhala and Tamil cultural aspects. According to Yalman, Panama is a shatter zone that is resulted from geographical isolation and Sinhala Tamil cultural assimilation. Panama, even today, is isolated geographically to a certain degree. If you see this map, you find more forest cover around Panama. Panama is the end of road network in Sri Lanka. There is no access beyond Panama. On the other hand, the most recent work on Panama by Pieratna explains Panama as a place where different cultural aspects are shared by different ethnic groups. The mixedness in Panama is called 50-50, half Sinhalese and half Tamil. The best way to explain this phenomena is their names. Names in Sri Lanka is the primary identity marker of ethnicity, sometimes religion and caste. From these two obituaries in the photograph, one can speculate that the dead are Sinhalese Buddhists, as the notices are in Sinhala language and carry the Buddhist praise of Nivan Suwa Labeva, or may he attain supreme bliss of Nibbana. But the names of the dead reflect neither the ethnicity nor the religion. The name in the notice on the top is Tamil, Nagan Panikyan, while the name of the dead in the notice at the bottom has a bilingual name, Sinnathambi Gunapala. Sinnathambi is a Tamil name and Gunapala is a Sinhala name. This is a clear example to explain how these people carry 50-50 identity with them. Since my focus is on religious mixedness in Panama, I will now explain how people celebrate religious syncretism in their everyday lives. While I was visiting Panama during Ankeliya or horn pulling ceremony, one of the interviewees, Kumari, said, "We are Buddhist, but God is everything for us." The God she used here is a collective noun for three gods. The Ganesha, the one I showed at the beginning, and here you can see another Pullayar Kovil in Vave Vehera in Panama. Then Kataragama Deviyo or Murugan, and finally goddess Pattini or Kanaki Amman. Murugan is believed to be the brother of Ganesha. When Kumari told me that God is the foremost important in Panama, my memory went back to an incident that took place 3 months ago in Panama. I was getting ready to go back to Kandy from Panama, and my host, Sudu Amma, told that I should take the bus from home without going to the bus station. She stopped the bus for me, and I was the first and the only passenger on the bus. The journey started and the bus reached the main road. The bus continued its journey towards Potwil instead of turning towards the bus station. After 1 or 2 minutes, we passed the main Buddhist temple and the bus stopped by the main Pullayar Kovil, which is located right in front of the main Buddhist temple. The showcase of gods, which was placed on the top of the windscreen inside the bus, and the name of the bus gave me a hint on the ownership of the bus. The bus was owned by a Sinhalese Buddhist. Immediately after the bus stopped, a Hindu priest came out from the Kovil with a puja plate. Puja plate is a tray on which the entire puja materials are accumulated and decorated. The priest got into the bus, stood right in front of the showcase and started chanting in both Tamil and Sanskrit. After 2 or 3 minutes, he completed his puja, marking a dot on the center of the showcase in front of the Buddha. Then the symbol of Om, the most spiritual sound, was drawn on the windscreen. Puja was completed. You can see this Om symbol inside the red box I marked in the photograph. The conductor kept a 100 rupee note on the puja tray, and finally the bus headed to the bus station. This example is a clear indication of how these people believe in God. Their everyday life begins with God despite being Sinhala Buddhist. This is not the only occasion where God comes first. In my interviews and discussions, it came out that the first haircuts of babies, the ceremony where children are officially introduced to education, and Kovil pujas for children before they sit for an examination are performed at Kovil. This is a photograph I took in Panama. This small shed is a home for many deities. You can see Pattini, Lakshmi, Shiva, and even a small statue of Buddha inside the hut. The religious syncretism in Panama can be observed in two occasions, Padayatra and Ankiliya. Now let's move to Padayatra first. Padayatra, or foot pilgrimage, is an annual pilgrimage by foot from Jaffna to Kataragama. From the map on your right side, you can see the journey of this pilgrimage. Panama is the last settlement of this pilgrimage before pilgrims reach Kataragama. In this map, Okanda is Panama because pilgrims worship and offer puja at Okanda before they enter into Yala National Park to reach their final destination, Kataragama. In 2018 January, when I was conducting interviews for my research, many Sinhalese people said that they can't speak Tamil. However, while I was in Panama again in 2018 during the pilgrimage season, I observed Sinhalese speaking in Tamil in Panama. Especially at Okanda Temple, I saw how Sinhalese helped Tamils in organizing pujas and providing food and water. Some Sinhalese and Tamils in Panama also joined other pilgrims to Kataragama from Panama. The second festival where religious mixedness is celebrated is horn pulling ceremony. In Buddhism, Pattini is one of the 4 guardian deities of Sri Lanka. To Sri Lankan Tamils, she is Kanaki Amman. Ankeliya plays the story of Pattini and her husband between 2 groups of Udupila, upper group, and Yatipila, lower group. Like surnames, ethnicity, and religion among Sri Lankans, the belonging to these groups is hereditary. This is not a merely a religious ceremony. It also conceptualizes the social hierarchy in Panama. People of low caste are not allowed to play, but those who belong to Dobi or Washerman caste, they wash all the clothes of 2 devales or temples of Pattini and Ayyanayaka. Summarizing Obesekara, Bastin points out that this game is closely associated with 3 aspects: Sinhalese male castration anxieties, repressed homosexuality, and Sinhala shaming practices. Women are not allowed to take part or watch the game. Although Sinhalese play a vital role in this festival, it is the last day of the ceremony that the Ampitya Devalaya, where this game is played, becomes a place shared by different ethnicities. Both Sinhalese and Tamils from different parts of the island visit this place. Some had come to pray for expecting a baby, while some for healing. A large number of people had visited the place for virtue offerings. According to Gombrich and Obesekara, worship of gods among Sinhalese is called spirit religion, which has formed around its own traditional roles and institutions. Panama, in that context, follows Sinhala spirit religion. As Winslow in 1984 points out, there is a hierarchy of these deities among Sinhalese. The Buddha is at the top, while all other deities stand below him. However, in Panama, positioning of gods is different, particularly from other Sinhalese villages in Sri Lanka. According to Mallika, these deities play a vital role in their lives. She added, "For us, God comes first and then Buddhism." She further told me that horn-pouring ceremony is their new year. They buy new clothes, make different types of foods, and visit Devale regularly. During these festivals, Panama transforms into a third space. Taking original definition from Soja, I define Panama in the context of third space as a new form of space that is produced through the amalgamation of Sinhalese Buddhist and Tamil Hindu cultural spaces. These types of shared spaces challenge politically constructed ethnicities in Sri Lanka, where inter-ethnic mixing seems impossible and unacceptable. Before I finish my presentation, I would like to show that this type of religious syncretism is common among other Sinhalese Buddhists as well. These two photographs explain how religious syncretism is common among Sinhalese Buddhists. On the left side, it is a picture of my friend Tushara's son's special day. It was the first day he was introduced to education, or it was the auspicious day his son started learning in any discipline. He starts reading and writing alphabets at an auspicious time on this particular day. He does this after worshipping Buddha, Saraswati, and Ganesha. The other photograph shows a glass wall covered with portraits of different gods. This is one of the lawyer's office in one of the cities in Sri Lanka. He's a Sinhala Buddhist, and I heard he also takes part in foot pilgrimage. Thus, I conclude my presentation here, arguing that religious syncretism has no ethnicity, no class, and no caste. Sinhala Buddhist identity do not necessarily prevent worship of gods. Last but not least, this small video clip gives you an idea about the foot pilgrimage I discussed. The first part of it shows how pilgrims, predominantly Tamils, walk through different destinations. Then you can see how both Sinhalese and Tamils venerate Kataragama Deviyo or Murugan while singing and dancing, wearing red colored clothes. The last part of this clip shows the Kataragama procession where both Sinhalese and Tamils take part.
Arohara, 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 Arohara. Arohara.